This is Johnny, the chubby, Caucasian, Christian, closeted conservative. Some might say I'm everything wrong with the world, but don't take their word for it. Make up your own mind. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chubby, Caucasian, Christian, Closeted Conservative. I have a special guest with me here today, one of my wife's best friends, Mary. Mary and I had an interesting conversation about a year ago about religion and faith, and it was very cool because we were able to find common ground on stuff, and then there were certain things that we were able to agree to disagree with. And it was very polite, very civil. So, Mary, can you just introduce yourself a little bit? You were friends with my wife prior to college?
Yes. So, hi, everybody. I was friends with Trisha before, prior to college. It's difficult to remember, but we...
Did you guys go to high school together?
Did not go to high school together. We knew each other. We had friends. We had friends that knew both of us, and she had neighborhood friends that she knew that went to school with me, and so we kind of connected through them. And gosh, I think I even met her all the way back in middle school.
Oh, wow.
Was when I first met her, but it was kind of like that, superficial relationship where it's like, there was that girl.
Yes.
Knew her name, but I didn't know anything else about her. And then we connected in high school a bit, and then really reconnected at Salisbury. Yay.
I don't know if it means anything to you, Mary, but my son does call Mary Aunt Mary, and that means a lot to me. I will confess right now, I am not a Bible scholar by any means. I didn't study religion in college. I didn't take extra classes or whatever. Are you a Bible scholar or religion major or something? No?
I went to Catholic school.
Mary and I, like I said, we had a great conversation about religion, found common ground and differences, was able to agree, disagree, very civil. So just to kind of show what kind of people Mary and I are, Mary is unaware of this, but I'm going to read from the Bible. Jesus is asked what the greatest commandment is. Mary, are you aware of his answer? So I'll just read it. This is it's in Matthew and Mark. And the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, Mary, hopefully we can find common ground that we both would agree with the second. What Jesus says is the second greatest commandment, right? Can we both agree that is something that Jesus said that we can both agree with?
Yes.
Okay. Just my personal experience is I think in general humans can be selfish at times, and I think Jesus knew that if we took that like selfishness and showed it outward and treated others as we would like to be treated, that it would just come naturally to treat others as we would like to be treated just because we're selfish in nature. So, Mary, let me just tell you a little bit about my testimony. I was raised as a Christian, a non-denominational Christian. My parents, when I was first born, I was young. My parents were not, didn't really attend church, were not saved. And later on in life, they ended up taking my sister and I to church. And we were involved in a very, very large church. Well, I was very involved. I was there almost every night. Until we found out when I was like in high school that pastor there was doing some awful things with married men who were just struggling and were looking for guidance. He was just taking advantage of them sexually, and it was very hard. Fell slightly away from my faith. I wouldn't say I discarded it completely, but basically I had the mentality, if a pastor couldn't do it, why should I even try? That's really like the mentality that I had. When I got involved with Campus Crusade for Christ in college, I met a group of men who really inspired me, who was okay to say that they weren't perfect and that they were just doing the best they can. I'm the kind of Christian that forgets to ask for forgiveness every day. I don't think I'm better than the individual. I have read through the Bible maybe once once my entire life. I believe that the church is a perfect idea run by imperfect individuals. We are human. Everybody makes mistakes. If someone were to tell me they were perfect, even you, Aunt Mary, I'd laugh you out of the room. I'm nowhere near perfect. I've made mistakes in my life. I've said stupid things that I wish I could take back. I've hurt people's feelings. I've been mean to people, and I wish I could take things back. So you said you were involved. You went to Catholic school. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I did. So I went from kindergarten to 8th grade at a Catholic school, and then when I went to high school, that was also Catholic. Okay. Yeah, 13 years.
And are your parents like devout Catholics or devout Catholics still?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Is the schooling, is that kind of what turned you away from Christianity or Catholicism?
It was a couple different things. Yes, I did feel like when we were in religion class, it never connected to anything. Nothing really resonated, I could say. It was just a lot of memorization, like
yes,
commandments and learning certain gospels and who said this and what happened. And it's kind of like history, how history is taught. We never really had any, deep conversations about it, even into high school, which is a great opportunity to have those kinds of conversations. I would say it also had a lot to do with the fact that my parents really pushed it on me. We would have to go to church every week. And there was a certain point where again, I would go to church and I'm thinking, I don't get anything from this. There's nothing that I'm taking from this. So why am I being forced to go? And so that's when I started to really question things and have conversations with people who were atheists and agnostic, and kind of went my own way.
Mary and I, we both were kind of sort of involved. I attended maybe a dozen or so meetings in college, Atheist Society. I learned a lot. Those guys and girls in that group were very, very, very smart. I remember just having my mind blown by one of the guys who said, we were having a very civil conversation, and basically he just said, you do what you think is right because the Lord might punish you, whereas I do what I think is right because I'm a good person, because I feel that I should do that, whereas you believe there's going to be some sort of punishment, like an eternal punishment or an eternal reward based off of your good deeds. That really did resonate with me. And, for Christians out there who feel that way, I would encourage you that you have not made your faith your own, that you are basically going through the motions and have not formed a personal relationship with Jesus. But Mary and I, one thing that I learned in Atheist Society was before you start having these discussions, you have to define terms, and everybody has to agree on the terms, because if we start a conversation where if we don't agree on terms and we start a conversation without agreeing on these terms, then we're kind of having two different conversations. We're speaking two different languages. So, Mary, I believe we agreed on what I would say Christianity is an individual who loves the Lord their God with all their heart, mind, body, and soul. Non-denominational would be something that I am, where you follow the Bible. I think a lot of Christians do get a bad rap of being judgmental, and that's something that we can discuss maybe at a different time. But we also talked about agnostic and atheist. Can we define those?
So agnostic is when you believe that anything is really possible.
Yes.
You just don't have any scientific proof. You don't have enough information to say yes or no, that there is a God or gods.
But you acknowledge that there might be something out there.
Yeah, it's just accepting the fact that we don't know, and yes, there might be something.
Whereas and I would agree with that definition. Whereas an atheist, we're talking about an individual who rejects the possibility of a god or gods.
Yes, because I believe it comes down to using science to support why it is not possible.
Okay.
It's using science to support that.
Okay. And what would you consider yourself?
Oof, that's tough. I really am. I do lean closer to agnostic.
We went on to the word faith. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I always try to discuss is I believe it takes a lot of faith to be an atheist, whereas I believe there is, I hate to say less faith, but to be agnostic. Agnostic, at least you're acknowledging that there's something out there that we just might not have discovered it, or there might be, or it could already be discovered. That's what I've always gotten from agnostic. Whereas atheist, you're basically saying, I almost feel that to be an atheist and takes the same amount of faith to be a Christian. Sometimes faith can have a connotation with meaning like Christianity in general. I would define faith as believing in something that you necessarily can't see.
Believing in something that you cannot see. Yes.
Now we can find common ground and agree that faith, a lot of people, like if we didn't define that before and I went on this whole thing about faith, you'd be like, what is he talking about? Like he's talking about Christianity and like atheism. I'm actually talking about like actual faith, that like when I inhale, even though I can't see it, I have faith that there's oxygen in the room and that I'm going to breathe it in, right? And when...
No, that's different.
That's different?
Because we have science that proves that, and that can actually show using technology that that's what happens. You know, using biology to understand that we, breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. And yeah, there's a lot of science that goes into understanding that. So
okay,
necessarily, it's true. You're right. We don't see it, but it's not like we have to have faith in it because we know it.
So what can we agree? So faith, you would agree, is believing something that you necessarily can't see.
Right. That can't, I would say to add on, that can't be proven by science. Science, the thing about science is that you go through the scientific method, you do experimentation, it's, something is proven or disproven, and then peer reviewed, but it's something that we know. So instead of believing, we know it to be true.
Okay.
So believing to be true versus knowing to be true.
And
that's what I would say the difference
is with faith.
Yes.
Okay. See, I would disagree with that because personally, I believe that Christianity is true, that Jesus really did die and raise.
But that's your belief.
That's my belief, yes.
Oh, man.
See, faith is difficult. And Mary, if we got in this conversation and we didn't define faith, you and I would, and this is why arguments happen, because we didn't take the time to define this. So when
foundation.
Yes. So if let's just say we went on with this conversation and I used the word faith, you and I would basically be speaking a different language.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. So when you say I have faith in a God.
Yes.
God.
Yes.
You believe that there's a God, but you don't need any proof you don't need to see that God to believe it. You just know.
Well, what if I've told you that I've seen proof of it?
Okay, so that's different. That is different. So meaning, are you talking about like miracles or like seeing like God and how people act? And
yes, the very creation around us. But to get back to faith.
Yes. This is gonna be like a 10-hour conversation. You're very easy to talk to. It's great.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. So faith. So we is there a term that we can use to define believing in something, even if it's proved by science that we can't actually see?
Okay, so to believe is to accept something as true, to feel sure of the truth. But believe also means to hold something as an opinion.
Okay.
So those are two very different things. Wait, let me think about this. No, I guess it's not. To accept something as truth can still be your opinion. But to accept truth can also be a fact. So a belief, yeah.
So in order to believe, as a Christian, in order to believe in God, it takes a great deal of belief.
It takes a great deal of belief, but then I think when it gets kind of hazy is when we start talking about being able to prove it or see it. That's tricky.
Okay.
Belief in science, but I think that's kind of an oxymoron to believe in science. Science is truth until it's disproven.
Yes.
So, we believe the earth is round, or, we know the earth is round. It's been proven, but...
Are we able to ask if it's been proven that there is not a God or a greater being of some sort?
Wait, say that again?
The reason why we can't agree on the term faith is because faith is believing without it being proven scientifically true. Okay. So my question, because basically what I'm trying to get to, what I want to say, and something that I've always, and maybe you can explain it to me. I believe it takes a lot of faith to be an atheist as well. Where if I was not a believer, if I hadn't met Jesus, I believe I would be agnostic, similar to you. Like, I would have a lot of trouble not thinking there's something out there. It's just us. Like, that doesn't make the probability, like, I'm not that lucky, you know, like.
So that's where, okay, so maybe when I said agnostic, I'm gonna clarify that even more.
Okay.
I'm not agnostic because I can't imagine that we're the only ones, or that
Okay.
there's nothing else out there. I'm agnostic because I don't feel like I don't think humans have developed enough intellectually to prove or disprove that. And even technologically speaking, I am more lean towards atheism because
Okay.
I highly doubt that there is something out there, just given all that we know so far
Yes.
about the earth and the universe. But I can't be 100% sure because things are changing so rapidly, and humans are, I mean, we're evolving, and the amount of information that we know, everything is changing so much. And again, I don't think our tiny little human brains can possibly comprehend something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we never will. But that's why I'm kind of like, there's a little chance that there's, yeah. So that's where I am.
Whereas you think being an atheist, it requires no faith.
Yeah, there's no faith whatsoever. There's nothing out there.
So it's been 100% scientifically proven that there's no other God or gods or higher power in the universe.
What do you mean higher power? Because that also gets kind of...
Okay, so we could just say God. I don't want to argue about higher power, like just a God.
So a god as in someone who is not controlling. Someone who is looking over us and...
Oh man, we got to define God? Oh my goodness.
I saw that look on your face like, maybe, I don't know.
No, but this is good. This is good. We are showing people that if you don't, like, if we didn't agree on that term, if we just sped off and started talking about God, we would be having a different conversation. We'd be having two different conversations.
Well, and I think it makes it difficult because there's so many religions in the world.
There are. They
believe God's role in each religion is different.
Yes.
And difficult to argue or to define because so many religions have different views of God. And so that's probably why there is a lot of fuzziness there.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't be able to actually say like, oh, this is what I think a God is, because, you know, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Now you can tell me what you think a God is, though.
I would thinking, like, trying to take in the majority of cultures, and would hope the majority of people could find common ground, that a God would be some sort of, and I know that's not very, like, pinpoint definition, but some sort of omnipresent individual that is responsible for creation or eventually the end of existence.
So God isn't a being. It's just a presence, like something that is around us. Well,
the Christian faith, Jesus walked among us. So there's, you should know this better than me. Isn't that the 3-in-1?
But actually, that's something that I do disagree with.
Okay.
So we don't actually have proof that Jesus existed.
We don't?
No, we don't. Now there are stories that have been passed down, and there are stories that say that, oh, there was this man, and, you know, he did great things, but we don't actually have, like, you know, Jesus's remains or anything like that to show, like, yes, that man did exist. By me not believing in a Jesus, I guess I automatically then, you know, don't believe in a God, because Jesus is God. But yeah, that is kind of tricky, because if you do believe that Jesus, so yeah, I mean, you say Jesus walked among us, but that's your belief.
Yes. When I do talk to an atheist and I try to agree on this term of faith, it's very difficult, because I believe that it takes faith to be an atheist, just like it takes faith to be a Christian.
No, because you're not believing in science. You are following science in knowing that it has
In the current science.
well, yeah, and also looking at past science too. Looking at science and research and saying and being able to say this is what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Not like I believe this, it's what we know. Believing in science. It's just because then I'm not gonna be like, oh, I believe in science. No, it's science is not something of a belief. It's just we know, so we have knowledge of science.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I have never mathematically proven to myself that the Earth is round. I've never sat down, done the measurements and done the math that the Earth is round. I've never been to outer space and actually seen that the Earth is round. I've seen pictures of what people show me that the Earth is round. However, I do believe that the Earth is round. Does that take faith to believe that the Earth is round? If I've never witnessed it with my own eyes or done the math or anything like that.
Well, you don't have to actually see something to know that it's true.
Exactly.
But that's not faith. Because when you're reading, let's say you're reading
an old book with several accounts of the world being round.
No, because are you talking about like the Bible?
I'm trying to compare. Yeah. Yes.
No, but the Bible is different than scientific studies because scientific studies have been peer reviewed by many scientists.
Yes.
And so that pretty much shows you that certain experiments have been done over and over and over again to prove that it is actually true versus stories that have been passed down is very different.
But you read these books, right? Multiple depictions of like people saying the Earth is being round, scientists peer reviewed and stuff like that. You read those books and took it at its word.
It's fact.
You believe it's fact.
No. I do not believe it's fact. It is fact.
It is a fact that the Earth is round.
It is a fact.
You've done the math. You've proven it.
No, other scientists have proven it.
Scientists have proven it. So you believe the word of other people.
Yeah, but that's because it's been proven by science, and that's that's what science is. Science is when you actually. It's not that I can say. So yeah, you've probably heard a lot of people saying lately, like, "Oh, I trust the scientists. I trust because trust."
Yeah, I don't want to get into that, but yeah.
Yeah. I trust or trust is another word for believe.
Okay.
And so you could say that.
Could we say it takes a lot of trust to be an atheist?
Trust in science.
Trust in science. Can we say that? It takes a lot of trust in science to be an atheist. It takes a lot of trust in the Bible and my belief in the Lord to be a Christian. It's interesting because, Mary, I will say, when I've had this conversation with other atheists and we get to this word faith, it seems to be, and like I said, I've never gotten this far with a discussion like that. That's why it's so nice to talk to you. But it seems to always be because there's a negative not a negative connotation, but there is a connotation of faith with Christianity or just like a belief in general. Like that, like saying faith and Christianity is the same.
I think it's how you use the word belief, though. That's the problem, is that we have used the word belief. Belief is really an opinion.
Okay.
And so I think that's where it gets a little grainy, because science is not opinion, it's fact until disproven.
Okay.
Versus belief is just an opinion. So I mean, you could, yeah, okay. So if we kind of look at it as like opinion, then yes, my opinion is that science is fact or whatever.
Okay.
But gosh, something about that just like feels like an oxymoron.
It does, doesn't it?
So
it almost, I don't know about you, but it almost like sounded dirty to me.
Yeah. It doesn't sound right. I think that's where we are. Fact and opinion are kind of, becoming almost one and the same nowadays. And I know we don't want to get into that, but that's where I do think that science and religion are different, but science and belief, that just, I think, comes down to technicality.
Okay. This will be the last question, but another little thing that we can get into that I do like to find common ground with atheists and agnostics. So, and just basically anybody of any religion, anybody of any different belief. So just common ground that I would like to find is, let's just say we take the whole like faith thing out of the Bible. You know, everything about Jesus rising from the dead, you know, floods or whatever disbelief you have. My question to you would be, the parables that Jesus tells and like Psalms and everything like that, would you say that there is wisdom in those? I'm not trying to trick you. I'm just generally asking your opinion.
Yes.
Like when Jesus says, love your neighbor, do you think that's like wise?
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
yes.
Absolutely.
So an individual who is not a Christian, do you believe that they could gain wisdom or knowledge from studying Christianity, maybe reading the Bible? Through the parables and Psalms and stuff like that. I'm not talking about like them becoming a believer, going to church. Yes. But like the 10 Commandments, like isn't that kind of all besides, you know, the first one or whatever, but like we shouldn't kill each other. Like we shouldn't steal from each other.
Well, the problem is I've had this conversation before with the 10 Commandments, is that there are a lot of people who believe that there are more important things that should have been included in the 10 Commandments. I think one of them is like, don't covet your neighbor's
wife,
goat or something, or not covet, but it's like don't. Oh, I can't remember what one of them is, but that is sort of, you know, when atheists and agnostics look at the 10 Commandments, they're like, really?
Yes.
God, like that's a priority for you, is using your name in vain? Like it's a very self-centered approach to it, versus what do I want you to do to make the world better? Like using the Lord's name in vain really doesn't do any harm to anybody, except for God, I guess. But for people on earth and for creatures and everyone and everything, it actually has no effect. And so that right there is kind of one of those gripes I have with the 10 Commandments.
I completely understand. When I've had this conversation before, 10 Commandments always do come up, which hopefully we can find common ground, like 6, 7 of them, not bad things. I think the majority of them are like against the law.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like, you know, I shouldn't try to sleep with my neighbor's wife. Like I wouldn't want him trying to sleep with my wife. Like,
yeah.
Which I think Jesus sums up when the Pharisees try to trick him and ask him what the greatest commandment is. And basically he says, you know, you and I could sit here and argue until the end of time about the first one, but hopefully we can find, and I'm going to bring us full circle here, hopefully you and I, and the majority of people listening, can find common ground on the second one. Hopefully the majority of individuals want to be treated a certain way and try to treat others that way.
Yes. So but is that a commandment?
Well, they asked that. So that's like the whole point is the Pharisees and like you are hung up on the 10 Commandments, whereas Jesus says that when they ask him what the greatest commandment is, and they're talking about those 10, they say, what's the greatest one? And in that, when the 10 Commandments are given out, the Lord says neither one of these is more important than the other. So they're really trying to trick him here. They're like, if he says anything other than we must follow all of them and we must follow all of them to the T, he's wrong. He's incorrect, and they're basically looking for any reason to cancel him. He doesn't say any of those. He doesn't say, you know, you should listen to your mother and father. He basically says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and treat your neighbor as you would like to be treated.
Okay, and he says, and of those two, he says, which one's more important?
Love the Lord your God with all your heart. Which I said, you and I could sit here and argue to the end of time. I'm not trying to convince you of that. Like I said when we first sat down, I don't want to convert you or anything. I enjoyed our conversation, and just to kind of show what kind of people we are, and I would hope the majority of us treat others, well, try to treat others as we would like to be treated. You know, like,
absolutely.
You know.
Yes, that is the most important thing.
We all fall short, and I am sure, I mean, I've treated people that the way I would like. I do not want to be treated. I can guarantee you I have.
We're not perfect.
No. But I think that's like a good ideology to kind of go behind no matter what faith or religion you are.
For sure. So going along with that, though, while we do agree that that is the most important thing, we disagree on where
the first part.
Well, yes, but I think it's important to note that we disagree on whether or not you need faith to develop those morals, right?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Because you think those top two things that Jesus said go hand in hand. Like believing in God and doing unto others that goes hand in hand. I think what gets me so hung up on all of that, do unto others as you would want done to you. Mm-hmm. The golden rule, pretty much.
Golden rule. Yes. Can we agree to call it that?
Yeah, we can absolutely.
Okay, so Mary and I have defined something. The golden rule.
It's so much easier to say.
It is the golden rule. Okay.
So the golden rule is something that, is developed through learning and living these morals. So, I grew up learning that if you murder someone or if you do horrible things, you need to ask for forgiveness and you might be going to hell if you don't. Versus learning that it's good and bad. You're making a negative or positive impact on people. But going along with that, I worry that there's this that a lot of Christians and Catholics believe that the only way for us to be moral, the only way for us to be good is to follow Jesus and follow God. But science has proven that we don't actually really need to follow a certain religion or to have a certain faith to do that. It just chemically,
yes,
we release endorphins and, there's serotonin involved and dopamine, all the good chemicals that make us feel good when we're good to people. Yes, you're right. We are born selfish. But it is natural that we have to be selfish because we have to look out for ourselves. It's a survival mode.
Survival, yes.
Well, it's just interesting that we had in the beginning of the conversation that whole talk about, what is belief? What is, what's belief? And then disproving and proving this and that. But I actually believe that everyone's agnostic because as we said, agnostic just means that you really don't, you're not 100% sure of anything, of any sort of God. And can't we say that everyone believes that? Because I would even say atheists. Atheists can't say 100% sure that, there's nothing out there. But can you, John, as someone who is religious or has faith, can you actually 100% say that there is something out there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I believe it wholeheartedly. Yes.
And where does this come from?
Just from my experiences, from the research that I've done. We could talk about this another time, but I do my belief in Christ does not get disrupted by evolution or anything like that. Some Christians, and I believe Catholics a lot, get held up on that. Want to sit there and argue about evolution or whatever. I'm not about that. If you read when God's going through creating everything. I heard a pastor talk about it one time that we don't know what a day is in God time. It could be millennium.
At Salisbury, I joined one of the sessions and we talked about the dinosaurs and all that stuff. And that really is it. I was debating with people who were very rigid in their beliefs that evolution, that doesn't exist, and it's God that created this, and so that was really hard. There was just no way that I could have any sort of station, because from there on out I was like, oh, it's like talking to a wall.
All right, Mary, well maybe we can try to do this again and define faith I had a great conversation. I know we maybe didn't get a whole lot done, and I don't really care what my audience has to say about it, but I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And basically what I want people to get out of is that it's okay to agree to disagree.
Yes, it is okay to agree to disagree.
Yes. Yes. And I would encourage anybody who's listening to us right now who's been offended about something that we've said, please do your own research and reach out to me.
Well, that's another thing. And it's really easy to get offended because we have certain beliefs and such that really define us as a person. And so I get it when someone is offended, but being able to take a step back and go, oh wait, but what got me to this point was being able to look at my that false information or those false beliefs and correcting it and then moving on.
Some people can't have like a mature dialogue about it, can't have like a down-to-earth, grounded conversation about it. They get very emotional, passionate, and it's difficult for them to think clearly and rationally. So I started this because I can have conversations with you, with Dan, with other people that I know can be mature about it, can challenge me, and hopefully I can challenge them. So Aunt Mary, thank you so much for having this conversation. Even if you disown me, my son still adores you, and my wife as well. So next time you come over, the three of you can sit down and no, I'm kidding.
You
and ignore me. But thank you again for doing this with me. I know it was a leap of faith, and I appreciate your friendship with my wife, and I care about you a lot. I really do, just because of the relationship that you have with Trish, and Trish speaks very highly of you, and I would do just about anything for you.
I appreciate you and care about you as well.
So I appreciate you putting up with me, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Please remember to rate, like, comment, and subscribe. I am everywhere now. On social media, you can find me on Tumblr, Facebook, Minds. You can find me on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and wherever you get your podcasts. All you have to do is search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative and look for my eagle. I had a family member paint that eagle, and I loved it so much that she gave me the original. She has a Redbubble account. She's very patriotic, loves the Lord. Just go on over to Redbubble, search Robin and Brown. It's Robin as the bird and the letter Brown the color. And if anybody wants to join the conversation, if anybody has any questions for Mary and I, please feel free to reach out to us. Mary and I would love to field and answer some of your questions. I hope to have her back again real soon. And we will see you later.